some point in time in the future, if the BJP is not in power and the government of the time decides that the Narendra Modi Stadium should be renamed to XYZ, whoever is in power at that time, then is that the road that we want to go down to? Isn't it better for them at that time to build a museum or a library or a stadium of their own than to try and just usurp old names and to change them to what suits the dispensation of that moment?
In this context, I would like to remind there are two prime ministers of this country who has bestowed Bharat Ratna to themselves. Jawaharlal Nehru got Bharat Ratna when he himself was prime minister, and Indira Gandhi got Bharat Ratna when she herself was prime minister. And everybody knows that the Bharat Ratna deciding committee is chaired by the prime minister itself. And the three members of this family has remained prime minister, and all three are Bharat Ratna. And I can understand some contribution of Jawaharlal Nehru, despite several differences and phenomenal blunders. I can understand some contributions of Indira Gandhi, despite the darkest hour of democracy. But I am unable to understand what was the contribution of Rajiv Gandhi. He came in politics in 82. He became prime minister in 84. He lost election in 89 and passed away in 91. The contribution equivalents to Bharat Ratna. But till that time, there was no Bharat Ratna for Dr. Ambedkar and Sardar Patel. So now I would also like to talk to what Pawan Verma ji has said, that during the British time, and this has happened, sir, if by your logic, Congress was formed under the aegis of the British government by a British secretary, Ellen Octavian Hume, in 1885. Their first president, Vyomesh Chand Banerjee, settled in London, and George Yule, Alfred Roe, William Wedderburn were the earlier presidents of the Congress party in the earlier years. And Jawaharlal Nehru, he was first appointed as Prime Minister not in 15th of August 1947. It was 2nd of September 1946 under the British government. Oath was given by Wavell, and he has to take oath in the allegiance to the Queen. And that's why several leaders like Ram Manohar Lohia refused to be part of that. And one more thing. You are talking about, sir, some mistakes, not blunders. On 16th of August 1946, Jinnah has undertaken direct action day. And just 16 days after, 2nd of September, Congress virtually begged Muslim League to be part of the government. And on 29th of October 1946, Liaquat Ali became the finance minister with Jawaharlal Nehru. That Jinnah who has, that Muslim League
okay.
who has
Pawan Verma, respond to Sudhanshu Trivedi's criticism.
And
requires
and one more thing,
yes,
on the foreign policy. Sir, one more line.
Okay.
Rahul, can I say one line more?
Boli.
As far as the foreign policy is concerned, Nehruji's foreign policy, just one line. Punjab gaya, Kashmir gaya, aur chala Bengal gaya. Half Punjab, Kashmir and Bengal is gone. Punjab gaya, Kashmir gaya, aur chala Bengal gaya. Aur Cheen ke haathon Mansarovar ka wa uncha bhal gaya. This is one line summary of his foreign policy.
You are highlighting what you call the blunders of Nehru, and it takes a high level of megalomania for anyone to give himself the Bharat Ratna, alleging that while Pandit Nehru was alive, he presided over a committee which granted himself the Bharat Ratna. Surely that doesn't suggest a very democratic approach in Sudhanshu's view. Pawan Verma.
Actually, he became Prime Minister in 1946. when India was granted dominion status. And the Congress party under Jawaharlal Nehru fought for complete independence, not in 1946, but from much earlier. In fact, it was Nehru who passed the resolution as Congress president in Lahore about total freedom from the British. In fact, there were many in the Congress who opposed it. But I am not going into this. You can call Nehru's era whatever line that Sudhanshu ji quoted, but you cannot say that Nehru was the person who gave away Punjab, who gave away China, who gave away. You have to understand that, as I said right in the beginning, historical hindsight is not always the most balanced perspective. Yes, his offer for a plebiscite in Kashmir has been accepted to be probably not only wrong, but strategically incorrect, but fortunately because the Pakistani troops never withdrew, it never had to be implemented. Yes, in 1962, the Chinese, we were not prepared to face the Chinese, and Panditji actually, as a result of a betrayal of trust he felt from a friendly country like China, you remember the slogan Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai, died almost immediately after that. His health deteriorated. But for instance, during Atal Bihari Vajpayee's time, Pakistani troops infiltrated in the garb of whatever into Kargil. It was an intelligence failure. Should we say that Atalji didn't make any real efforts to build bridges with Pakistan, or that his foreign policy was entirely bad? So I am saying, please keep a balance.
Harsh, Madhusudan Gupta, Pawan Verma arguing for balance, saying historical hindsight is always 2020.
There are credible reports, Rahul.
And historical hindsight is always 2020.
There are credible reports. Can I speak?
Yeah, Harsh.
There are credible reports, Rahul, that both the Soviets and the Americans at different points of time had offered a permanent security, United Nations Permanent Security Council seat to India in lieu of the Taiwanese. Remember that at that point of time, the Chinese permanent seat in the UNSC was held by what is now Taiwan. And in both instances, Pandit Nehruji refused the offer, saying that we cannot do that in place of the Chinese, because that would be extremely unfair, it would be wrong. Now, I humbly submit to you, no matter what idealism or realism, or, Pavanji quoted the example of Vajpayee trying to build good relations with Pakistan, but Vajpayee was prepared if it went downhill, and then we won Kargil. Nehru lost 1962 because he was not prepared, including his choice of foreign ministers, defense ministers, and people who were then leading the Indian army, including General Thapar. So it's not about that friendship offers per se are wrong, but not to be prepared for the downside. That is what the mistake is. And to refuse a UNSC permanent seat, which was offered at different times by both the Soviets and the Americans, because no, we cannot offend the Chinese. And Sardar Patel was absolutely right that Tibet was a buffer region between India and China, historically, civilizationally. And the moment that went away, something had to go wrong. And that is entirely on Nehruji. And therefore, balance is absolutely important. But in the name of balance, it's not 50-50.
You can't paint a rosy picture
has to be called out.
without looking at the failures of the man. Rohan Gupta, the Soviets and the Americans offering a United Nations Security Council seat, which India now clamors dearly, unable to get. It was on our table, and Pandit Nehru said, no, that's not a small mistake. That shows a massive, what you'd call a Nehruvian blunder.
Rahul, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you question all the decisions which are taken by all the Prime Minister here, I think this debate will go on for next 48 hours. I can question Mr. Modi when he went to meet Mr. Nawaz Sharif on his birthday with the cake and shawl. Would you question it now? After we had Pulwama, after that, we had so many incidents. ISI was called to India in Pathankot after Pathankot attack. And this is the first time that ISI was allowed in India to inspect the Indian premises.